the meeting of December 8th, Historical Commission meeting will begin. Welcome, everybody. I think I do need to take a roll call, so I want to, Michael, are you here?
I am here.
Alan Bogosian?
Alan Bogosian here.
Nancy Nelson?
Yes, I am here.
Bob Gross? Getting organized. Okay, you're here. He signals he was here. Melissa Selfield's here. So thank you all. I know you have your agenda. I'm going to take the agenda a little bit out of order because there are some folks who wanted to try and participate in the scenic roads bylaw discussion who will not be able to join us until a little bit later. So I'm going to move to item number 2 to ask Carleen Hempel, who is the chair of the Junction Village Open Space Task Force, to give a brief report, really, and emphasize the component about the historical interpretation of the plaques about the Civil War encampment. I don't know that any of us officially know about what that project involves with regarding the historical component. So, and you should ask Heather if you want any of your slides to be presented. Carleen?
Oh, thank you so much, Melissa, for bumping me up on the agenda, and for all of you for being here with or allowing me to be here with you. I would love to just talk to you at first to address specifically what Melissa is asking me to talk about, and then at the end, if people would like to look at the concept plan that the most recent concept plan that we're working with, then we can pull that onto the screen. How does that sound, Melissa? Is that okay? All right. So it's so nice to meet you all. I have never appeared before this group, though I see some familiar names and faces from the previous groups that I've been speaking about this project with. I am a resident of West Concord and have been with this committee since its beginnings, which Christopher Whalen and I sort of conceived of this group before he left his post. Seems like 100 years ago, but the committee didn't actually get sort of populated until earlier this year. I see another member of my committee just joined the group, Steve Urza, there on your screen. And Steve Urza and I are old colleagues from the West Concord Advisory Committee. We both chaired that for a couple of years each. This is an extraordinary parcel of land that bookends what will be Concord, Christopher Heights at Concord Village. It's a site that you may know well because of a lot of narrative and a lot of story and discussion relating to the 83 unit affordable assisted living facility. Though we are connected and inextricably linked because we are on the same site, we are distinct in that part of the discussion of creating that property was to allow for open space. There are 2 parcels on this land. One is what we call a wedge, and we have taken to calling it a meadow, which if you're on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail at the end of Winthrop Street off of Commonwealth Avenue, and looking at the site, so the site you'll be able to access the site that will continue from Winthrop Street. To the left of that is an actual triangle, and that is the wedge, the meadow that we're talking about. And on the right, along the Assabet River bluff there, it's a large bluff, 40 and 50 feet off from the water up to the top of the site. That's about 6.5, almost 7 acres, that parcel that we're talking about. And the meadow on the left is about 1.83, almost 2 acres on the left. So our charge has been to figure out how to incorporate this as both open space, but as preservation. It will have a conservation restriction, the bluff side, not the wedge side. But also to honor, our charge was also to honor the uniqueness, and I understand the definition of the word unique, the uniqueness of this site, which is a marvelous contribution to some of the historic narratives of that are so well known in Concord. And what's so, I think, so stunning about this piece is I think the historic significance of the site is not well known. And this is why we have such a special opportunity, I believe, to highlight those and educate people about those. So to specifically Melissa's request, without moving on from the general context, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end if you have any logistical questions about the site, is this whole area, which is a little bit more than 12 acres, 4-ish, which will house the assisted living. This whole site has significance for a couple of reasons. The first is that it was known as the Great Encampment. Please understand that I understand that you're all historians and that you may understand this site better than I. And I am not to be so presumptuous that I know more than you. I have done my best to educate myself, but please don't hesitate to jump in and correct me if you feel like I've mischaracterized something. I learned mostly about this at an open forum we had, where we had a few historians. Anka, who I also see on the call, was there to talk about the prison and its and the Reformatory and its incredible presence in our lives over many years, 150 years. So this Great Encampment was quite an extraordinary event that I didn't understand the extent of until we had that open forum. And I'll just read a little, I'll just characterize a little bit for you about what I've written about it in relation to our CPC application. It was the site of the largest military mobilization in the United States since the World War of 1812. Visitors were there in 1859, the dawn of the Civil War, where units from 80 different communities converged on this site for 3 days. There were 3 military divisions there, 6 brigades, including 5,332 personnel also on site. And this was an enormous draw from people of all the communities in our area. 100,000 additional people came to this site to watch this great, capital G, capital E, this great encampment. There were 18 brass bands there to entertain both the folks who were going to be going off and fighting for the North, as well as all of the people who came to watch this happen. And what's so fascinating is we have many artifacts, many historical artifacts that are not reproductions, that are original from this time, including like a ticket, almost like an invitation, a ticket announcing what this event was going to be. And so that's one aspect of this site that is just extraordinary and so special for us to understand and to know. And then what's also extraordinary, and I think equally so, is the presence of the Reformatory and its evolution into the prison that we know now. And Anka is much better at explaining this than I, but let me just quickly say that in her presentation and in what other people said, other scholars and those who know said at that historical forum that I mentioned, is that we began to understand the economic engine and the sort of progressive attitude that these institutions had from the beginning. And I, for one, feel like I've lived in West Concord not very long, likely not as long as some of you. I've been here 10 years, but I don't really know much about the history of the prison. or its role in our community, but it has been significant in all of these years. As I said, as an incredible economic force, but also as a force of not only justice, but social reform. And as it remains so today, in terms of its programs to not only rehabilitate, but reacclimate its inhabitants into productive lives. And as you know, we have a program for many of those residents of that population in sort of job programs throughout our town. This is extraordinary, and this is something that I think that people would like to know and should know. I hear my dog barking in the background. I'm so sorry. So also, as a little asterisk to this, which always makes people's ears perk up, it's not the only extraordinary thing about the Reformatory in prison, but it is a significant one to people. And that is that Malcolm Little, and who you would know would eventually became Malcolm X, was so sorry about my dog, was an inmate there and started his transition to Islam while he was incarcerated in Concord. This is incredibly important, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And also, I know less about this. I keep reminding myself that I need to read about this particular next thing I'm going to mention, and I haven't yet. So I'm speaking a little bit out of school, but I also know from Anka that Timothy Leary, famous for his use of and advocacy for psychedelics, used some of the inmates in this facility to test his theories. And go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I just have a question. I know that you're going to be doing interpretive panels as part of this
Yes.
redesign of this area. How much of this are you going to be talking about Malcolm X and Timothy
Yes.
Leary, or is it mostly
Yes.
about the Civil War encampment?
So the site has been designed to have 3 sets of interpretive panels. One, I'll just say quickly, will have to do with the fact that this site is on the edge of a wild and scenic river, and we want to explain to people what that is. The other 2 are going to be dedicated to the 2 topics that I've just mentioned to you. The first one being the Great Encampment, and the second one finally honoring what this reformatory in prison has meant to our community, the evolution it's taken, and the place that it has. And so those interpretive panels haven't been written yet, but so I don't have text to show you we're quite a ways away from that. But there are 2 areas that have been designed into, and at this point, Heather, if you wanted to pull up, you don't have to, but if you wanted to pull up the rendering, oh, there she is, right on target. So the wedge is what I'm talking about on the left. I know you can't see my cursor, but thank you, Heather, the larger circular area on the far left is sort of a landing spot for people who come into the park complex. And that will have a kiosk, which will sort of give you the lay of the land, the rules, no bikes, no trash, all of that. These 2 other areas, these sort of bluish areas that will be fully pervious, probably stone dust, but we're not entirely sure. These will include the 2 sets of interpretive panels, one of which, probably the lower one, the southern one, will involve the Great Encampment discussion, and the northern one that looks more toward the prison will talk about the history of the prison and what it's meant to the community. Just for your point of reference, this is also a pollinator meadow, so that sort of tan color is all going to be pollinator flowers. And then these trees you see, there's nothing there, it's just scrub now, will all be intended to be very large shade trees. So this is a place for education, for reflection, for rest, for people to just learn and reflect and to visit. So I just have one, if you will just allow me, I just have one more reference that I'd like to make that I think is appropriate and will be appreciated by this group in particular. And that in my research for this, I looked at the 2018 comprehensive long range plan and pulled some language from that I just think is apropos of this discussion. And if I could just take 2 more minutes, I'll share that with you. And that is that the long range plan team emphasized that cultural and historic resources ranked 7th in the list of qualities that Concord residents noted as important to them in a survey that they did. And the report also noted that residents, and listen to this, that residents didn't want to simply define important historical resources as structures, and this is what's important, but rather the spaces between buildings, so beautifully written, the spaces between buildings, the historic landscapes, agricultural lands. And that, again, historic preservation, I know usually or often deals with structures, but and I understand that, but there is language from what I understand that awards consideration for the cultivation, protection, development, and awareness building of historic and cultural resources and I believe this qualifies for that. So that sort of completes the context that I wanted to share with you. And I'm happy to discuss any aspect of it. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for Carleen? I think this is, I mean, as a resident of West Concord, I am very excited about the prospect of doing this. Nancy, yes.
I just want to know, Carleen, has a preferred alternative, so to speak, been selected? I know the CPC saw maybe 3.
This is the most recent rendering based on, is that what you mean, Nancy, in terms of the?
Yeah.
So I just
showed us the preferred, or I know there
Yes.
were 3, so I'm trying to figure out which one.
3 was a long time ago when we first submitted. Now we're down to 1. This is the concept plan that's been, but I have recently, I met with Greg Higgins from the NRC and Delia yesterday, and we further amended the right side of the panel there to pull things a little bit farther away from the river, but not really, there have been no changes to the side, the wedge, the meadow that will include the interpretive panels that are apropos of this conversation.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Melissa, you're on mute. I don't know if I should be calling on people.
Well, here, I'm Bob. Hi, Bob. You're muted.
Also mute.
So, okay, Carleen, I just wondered, have you talked with David Wood of the Concord Museum?
Yes, David Wood was one of the 3. I mentioned we had guest speakers at this historical forum. Well, maybe it was an historical forum, but this forum that we talked about sort of historical aspects of the site. And David Wood was one of our star speakers. He wants to be involved in the once we get to the point where we're actually crafting the interpretive panels, David will be involved.
Great.
So I just want to add that Richard Foreman is the person that I first heard about the Great Encampment from a long time ago. And I don't know if you're in touch with him or not, but
That name hasn't been mentioned to me, and I don't know who Richard Foreman is. So
Well,
thank
I
you
mean,
for
we'll-
mentioning it.
We
yeah,
will get, I'll
don't
send you
think,
his
Bob,
contact.
that he'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, he knows an awful lot about this, I think.
Thank you
Richard
so much.
Foreman is a land specialist around the world. He knows
Yeah.
land and the
Yeah.
history of land.
And
So-
trees.
Every square.
And- Wait a-
I'm so glad to know the name. Thank you.
Yeah, he's great.
Hi, Alan. Yes.
So originally there was a block of space by the river that was going to be designated as open space. So just to ask again, as Nancy did, there's no open space being considered by the river.
Absolutely. There is, I figured you wanted me to be more focused on the aspect of the site that has to do with the historic interpretive panels. I can go into detail about what we're planning or hope to be planning on the riverside. Is that the will of the committee? Should I go into more detail?
Yeah, yes, I think, yes, go ahead.
I'm happy to. This is a beautiful, beautiful piece of property. It is riddled with invasives, and it is almost unreachable now. So part of the plan, if you look on the bottom, there's a little sort of bluish circle that if to orient you, there's a sort of a street. Thank you. That's exactly where I mean, Heather. So that's Winthrop coming up toward it off of Commonwealth Avenue, and the big sort of, tunnel looking area along the sort of southern aspect of that is the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. This will be another sort of entry kiosk where Heather was just circling for us. And again, it will tell people what they can and cannot do. And then the path sort of continues there. And as you see it, it'll go by this sort of reddish box. Thank you so much, Heather. It'll go by this reddish box, which is a beautiful grove of sumac. And we're going to preserve that in its entirety. To the immediate right of that is a small sort of gathering area. That is now, if you see it inside those two red lines, that is now peeking into what's called the riparian zone, and an area that is considered both the 25 and then the 50-foot setback. We're going to pull that a little closer into the sumac area, but there will still be part of it in that inside those two red lines that allow people to peek out over there. It's an incredibly exquisite vista there. As you look down, there's a stand, a grove of pine trees right there to the right, and it's right at the bend of the river. It's really beautiful. Then as you sort of go down that little path, Heather's heard me do this so many times that she can present better than I. And as you so grateful, as you go down to the second sort of bluish area, these are a little large and out of scale as they are now. They're going to shrink down quite considerably. They might be 10 or 12 feet across. The NRC made it clear to me that it looks like they're 50 feet across here. So these are going to be scaled back. Again, this is just the first concept plan, but the concept is solid. And that's where we'll probably likely put the interpretive panels about the wild and scenic river and what that means and why that's so special, that designation. That little path continues on, but I want to point out that sort of U-shaped area. That is a sort of recess in the landscape that is there. We just are going to preserve it. It is already there. It was clearly some sort of lagoon that was once there, maybe as some sort of, I don't know, something site. No one really knows, and so I can't really say. But the site has been tested for any sort of hazardous materials, and there are none on site. So it's safe. But there is there's sort of a recess there. That gray upside down U will be hopefully repurposed granite that we hopefully will find from rail beds and things like that, and no more than 2 feet 6 inches. So it'll be like a sitting wall that people could go and sit at, and again reflect. Of course, my vision is that perhaps people could go and have a book club or just some quiet reflection space. And up at the top of that, we're just about to the left of where Heather's triangle, right, there'll be a couple of picnic benches so that people can sit. Again, there's going to be some shield sort of screening vegetation, trees, what will be mature trees, pin oaks, and a cross between a red maple and a silver maple, and I can't think of the name. I can't think of the name of the tree right now, but those will be built in there. The other thing that you see that I've been asked to remove from this side, and so if you look, there are little tiny squares. There are about 4 of them on the sort of very northern edge between the sitting wall. Yes, that's exactly right. And there are some scattered along. Those were intended to be plinths for art, local artists to put permanent art, or actually a revolving gallery of art. And also the library was interested in installing a story walk that also emphasized the history of the site. I've been asked to pull those out of this area and locate them down near that original little bluish circle that Heather first explained to us. That's exactly right. And then also put a few more over in the wedge, which we are happily going to do. So really what you're going to see on the right is the sitting wall, the path, and these two sort of quiet reflection areas, one of which is just an overlook, and one of which will have some more interpretive panels that emphasize the wild and scenic.
Great.
Thank
That certainly
you.
was a great overview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful.
Outstanding
I mean,
overview.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
if all goes well with the funding and fundraising, when do you think this will be actually completed?
Well, the real trick is the invasives. From what I understand, it takes years to wrangle those invasives into submission. I don't know if any of you know about that better than I, but
Nancy does.
it's an extraordinary, I've just learned what an extraordinarily difficult and expensive task that is. And it's disheartening because I think it's hard to present a budget and have that be what a lot of the budget is going for, but that, but there's so many reasons to do it. One is they're strangling the beautiful and mature specimens on the site, A, and B, they're completely obscuring the view of this beautiful vista. And from what I understand, it's not so great for for wildlife because the invasives are not nearly as edible as the natives that we hope to replant and reestablish and protect in this area. By the way, this area, if you've been to it, and we'll have a site visit, is littered with trash. There's like a washing machine down there. There's a toilet. People have been dumping in this area for years. I don't know who, and it doesn't matter who, but it's a mess. There are pipes and debris and broken things. And so all of this effort is to clean up this space, make it, preserve it and honor it for what it is. And so, Melissa, to your specific question, our plan is to be finished within 3 years. The first year of CPC funding will go to removing the invasives. Some of that will be done with in-kind machinery work from Grantham, which is going to start building the assisted living facility in the spring. And so that's why timing is so important for us, because once they start moving that earth, we want to take some of that earth and put it into the damaged earth that's on the meadow side. And also there, once the conservation restriction sets into place, we're not going to be able to get that machinery on there again. And so now is the moment to disrupt the site once and then not disrupt it again. And then much of the budget goes to continued invasive wrangling and removal. The other part of the funding that we're asking for now, which is 250,000, the presentation I gave to you is 3, but I pulled it back 2 nights ago in the CPC meeting, is to rough out the path for the same exact reason. We need to do that while the machinery is available to us and while the site is being worked on. Once those 2 things are done, once the path is roughed out, the sort of visitation spots are roughed out and the invasives are pulled back, we won't need any sort of big machinery again. And then over the next couple of years, that will be the sort of thing where we figure out what natives to plant, figure out how to fund those. I'll be writing grants left and right, but also we're going to solicit some fundraising. We don't want the full burden of this to be on the taxpayers and the CPC. And I feel very confident because of the historic significance of the site, the beauty of the site, and just the sort of spirit of the people in Concord that we'll be able to augment some of the funding that we're asking for in the future. So hopefully 3 years, Melissa.
Well, that's impressive. Really, it's beautiful. Other comments from any other members from the Bob?
Yeah, I wonder in your signage, if you want to emphasize the competition between invasives and native plants and explain something to people coming by, what you're engaged in doing. There's also, I think, a metaphorical link between restoring a space to its natural healthy condition and the hopes for the inmates who come out of the penitentiary to have been restored to a natural health.
I'm
It's lovely.
affected by by your words, and I so appreciate that sort of commentary and that sort of spirit. Just to your point, I don't know if I should call you Robert or Bob, but
Bob's fine.
to your point, we were thinking in that sort of larger circle to put some words. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Reflection Garden. I'm pointing because I live right near it. So the Reflection Garden at West Concord Church, but they have sort of words in there, beautiful. And we were trying to think of words that we could put in that capture exactly what you're talking about.
I think you should look seriously at Malcolm X's writings and look for a quote.
Oh, good idea.
Oh, good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yes, and he has a foundation that has gotten in touch with us, and that we are, once this gets a little bit farther along, we will work with that foundation to do exactly what you're talking about. So that's an incredible suggestion. I'm writing it down.
Thank you. Nick?
I just want to say, Carlene, I tuned in, I think, to maybe one of the very first open forums of the Junction Village Task Force, when you had quite a few historians and other people there at the time. And I was impressed then, and I'm really impressed now. It's really,
Yeah, it's
Nancy.
really great.
it's magnificent. It really, so
Great.
I know you can't get it done by 2025, but it would be a marvelous addition to Concord as part of our celebration. But even so, it's fabulous.
Thank you,
Other questions, other comments? Anybody?
Anka.
Yes,
Anka?
I was just gonna say, thank you, Carlene, for the great summary of also the meetings that we had previously and the history that was presented there. It is an amazing site. And again, I want to say, Malcolm X was there for, I want to say 15 months in 1947 to 1948. And the experiment, the Harvard connection, this is the Harvard connection, is Timothy Leary's experiment. It's called the Concord experiment. You can Google it. Articles have been written about it. And it was from 1961 to 1963. And the goal of the project was to study whether psychedelic drugs, in this case mushrooms, could affect recidivism in prisoners.
Wow.
Well, it got Timothy Leary in prison.
That's the opposite direction.
Oh, that's so
Thank you. Other comments? Well, thank you so much, Carlene. I too was at that, participated in that forum, and it was so impressive, as Nancy said then, and it's amazing where you've taken this, because you've got natural resources, literature, art, history. You've got all the elements that why our particular wild and scenic rivers, I think they cover all the bases. You had to be nature, history. Nancy helped me, but the Assabet River matches all of it. So thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if it's possible. I don't know the appropriateness of requesting something from you all, but if there is any way that you might feel comfortable letting the CPC know in some way that you might feel favorably toward some work at this site and in the historic aspect of it, it would be so greatly appreciated, so they understand that there's support within the community.
I think,
Carlene,
well, on that point, I might defer to Nancy just to ask, because it's a current application of the CPC. I would ask you, Nancy, what?
I think I would have to reread and reread the application, there is a role for the historical commissions to endorse or ratify things as historic resources which might not qualify as actual historic resources because it's not a structure, it's not a landscape, it's not a document, it's not a musket. But what you're doing
Well,
is
I mean,
trying to get to the historical foundation of that site. And the Historical Commission has the latitude to declare such things important
As historic-
historic
well,
resources.
the encampment, the ground itself isn't, it doesn't that qualify?
Well, it's kind of gone. I don't know that you,
The land's
I
still
don't
there.
think we're restoring the encampment ground.
No,
I think,
So that's not what's being restored, rehabilitated, preserved. And those are the historic preservation categories, basically.
Bob,
yeah, there are a couple of things I wanted to ask. One, it's worth emphasizing that John Shepherd Keyes of Concord, then Middlesex County Sheriff, also oversaw the entire encampment.
Oh, that's great.
oh,
And so, you know, his role was key. And he actually went from that role to the Republican convention where Lincoln was nominated. And he was then the person
Oh, wow.
designated by Lincoln to do security at the inauguration in 1861. So the
great.
practical organizational experience he had led him into other critical national security matters. He ended up being in charge of Camp Massachusetts as a prisoner of Confederate war camp during the war. The other thing I wondered is, can inmates at MCI Concord, do they have river views?
Do they have what?
Do they have river views?
Oh,
it's surrounded by a wall. No, they have that
But-
giant wall.
But Bob, to that point, and this has to be a separate effort because I think it might be a controversial one, but I can only imagine the artistic capacity inside those walls. And so when we're talking about those plinths, what I would love to do is have one of the first exhibits be the manifestation of a gallery of art solicited from inmates inside the prison. And so that is my hope.
You should talk with Jerry Wedge about that. From the umbrella, because actually he has a connection to certainly at least one prison inmate, but he has others who have reached out to him and sent stuff.
Okay.
do you know, has anybody heard of or seen a film called Dharma Bums that was produced by Frank
Kerouac,
Wolf's
right?
wife, Jenny, I think. That she did a lot of work with prison inmates, and that might be something to look at too.
I will. Boy, I'm getting, which is not surprising, but I'm getting a lot of references to look at and to explore from this particular group. I
I'll
appreciate it.
look into that for you, so you don't have to. I'll try.
Thank you.
I'll try to get that again.
Well, can I just say that, I mean, this is separate from your proposal, but it's related in a conceptual way. You know, if you're making a proposition that nature is healing, then there ought to be a way to connect the inmates who overlook that river in space to the healing powers of nature.
Are you a poet?
Historian.
He's a recently republished author. You know, at some point I was going to talk about your book, Bob.
Thank you. That's really beautiful. Nature is healing. That is a tagline that I hadn't thought of, but doesn't it work? It really, I'm a journalist, Bob,
Oh.
and I'm telling you, that's the sort of tagline that sort of can precede something like this. So thank you so much.
Heather?
I was just gonna say that I think it would be appropriate for the commission to submit a letter of support for the project. There is history to the site, so I don't think it's inappropriate. You know, I think it would be fine if the commission would like to submit a letter of support for the project. That's okay in my book.
Thank you, Heather.
Well, I would like to, and I think this is a wonderful project, especially since I can walk it every day from where I live. Would be great. So do I kind of get a consensus of the members of the commission? Because if it's okay with you, then I will draft a letter. I'll work with Heather. We'll draft a letter to send on to the CPC.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Good.
Extraordinary. Great.
Okay.
Hand on my
okay.
heart. Thank you so much for this incredibly warm welcome. I'm really grateful, everybody.
So I just like to put in another plug about Carlene. Carlene is the person who has been conducting, we've revived the oral history program for the town, and Carlene has been the one doing the interviews with personnel from Emerson Hospital. So in addition, she does have a full-time job. So thank you for that as well.
My pleasure. My pleasure to you all. Okay, thank you
Actually,
so much.
I think it was Jack
Say thank you
Carl's
too.
idea first, Dharma Bums.
Yes,
But there's a connection to Jenny Phillips. I'll find it.
Okay, thank you.
That's right. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you again very, very much. So I think we'll move on to commission membership. For some time, we wouldn't have any candidates for historical commission membership. And this time we have 3 excellent people. Chessie Cataldo, who I think is right here, Sophie Ganem, and Nancy Frizella Lee. I hope all of you have had an opportunity to read their impressive resumes, because each one of them brings real strengths to the commission, but we can only pick one. This is to fill the spot that Alan left when Alan became a full member of the commission. So this is a position for the associate member. So I don't know, Kite, do I just ask for nominations? I'm a little flummoxed here how to begin. Or
I think if the commission wants to have a discussion about members, or if someone wants to make a nomination, however you want to do it.
Sure. I certainly will. Would you like me to begin, or would you want to
Absolutely,
wait for
Michael.
somebody else?
Yep.
Sure. So I submitted Francesca's resume, and I'm sure each of you have read it. And she has a history degree from Wake Forest and a law degree, excuse me, from the University of Virginia. And I thought, having worked in the public sector for years with boards, and then as a real estate developer on a historic project with boards and commissions or whatever, and then my attendance at the planning board meeting several weeks ago, where I believe at least 2 or 3 of the members were attorneys, at least I looked up their resumes. I thought that yes, we do have a unique mission. And as people who are historians or people who have a passion for history, Francesca does have a history degree, but I also see a balance. And I think what I saw at the planning board, which I'm sure you all know because I have not attended those meetings, is I saw a wonderful chemistry with each of them. And then I did see the strength of having someone with a legal historical perspective on a commission. Okay, I did see that. I did see the other nominees have history, relationships, and a passion, but I do think that having somebody join the board that is an attorney with a passion for historic preservation and the knowledge base that she has, if you looked at her resume and see the work that she's done, I think it would really be a major contribution to the Historical Commission. So I would like to nominate Francesca as an associate to the commission.
Bob?
Second, and I actually, though I've only read the CVs, I had exactly the same thought as Michael just laid out. A number of the issues we're confronting, where we're having to think about new bylaws and submissions to town meeting, I think we would gain enormously from someone with legal expertise.
Yeah. Nancy, your thoughts?
I agree.
Yep.
We have a motion. Should we vote or?
Well, I'm just giving everyone an opportunity. Alan, do you have?
Yeah, fine.
And I also looked at all three and I thought that I would vote for Francesca.
Well, I think so I will ask for a vote then. Michael?
Yes,
No,
I
no.
would like to nominate Francesca
And it's been
Cataldo
seconded by
to the
Bob.
Historic Commission.
Second,
Bob
yeah.
seconded.
All in favor? Oh yeah, I have to take a roll call. So Nancy,
Aye.
Alan,
Yes,
Michael,
I,
Bob,
Aye.
and myself, I as well. So welcome, Jesse. We are,
Yes.
I think you will be a terrific addition. And I can also
Absolutely.
say that she has done incredible work already on behalf of the Scenic Roads Bylaw, which is the next
Right.
item on our agenda. Research work that with two little kids, it's very impressive. So we are really thrilled. And I absolutely agree with Michael. I think someone with a legal training as well as your knowledge of history, but a way to approach a problem, frame an issue is really a strength that you will bring to the commission. So welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. I'm thrilled and really excited to get to know each of you and to jump in.
Excellent. Thank you.
So-
Did you live on the lawn?
I did not. I wish. I walked it many times, looking longingly.
Okay, so then I guess Heather, we will forward your name to the select board, and at some point you have to be sworn in and. et
Yes,
cetera.
yes. So I will email them tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Then let's move to the Scenic Roads bylaw discussion. Very late breaking news. I don't know if you were able to read through the bylaw warrant article that just got sent to you, because Heather only got it at close to 5 o'clock or maybe even later. I have read through it, and I've been reading through a lot about the Scenic Roads bylaw, working with some other folks, doing research on what other communities do. And I have read through this, and I think it's excellent. I don't know, have others been able to read it? Nancy, Allen, Michael, Bob?
Yeah.
I didn't get it this
I did read it, yes.
The
Nancy?
fines are awful low.
The fines are consistent.
Right.
Fines are consistent with the legislation. They cannot be any higher than that.
So
Right.
my only thought was about this, do we really have to put the fines first?
Yeah, I
I
agree.
mean, that was kind of a buzzkill, actually,
Yeah.
for me. I
Yeah.
thought
Well,
if I
but-
was reading that, I'd say, oh, another government entity trying to fine me and restrict my
Right.
freedoms as an American. And I don't know, do they have to be first?
This is the town council. I think we could probably ask to reorganize this. I'm sort of surprised that it's as prominent as it is.
Me too.
It strikes me that it could be written rather than in a big table. In a table, it looks like it's the
Yeah.
most important thing.
Yeah, it's really very, very prominent and up front and center and the first thing you see. And I think it could have a real negative effect.
So,
Could I say something?
absolutely.
Why doesn't the legislation have a paragraph saying what you would gain from its passage? Instead of beginning with, we'll punish you, here's the fine,
Yeah.
why not say, here's what a town has to gain from the passage of such a law?
That may be our job.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's our job, we should do that. Because, otherwise, as you say, it's all negative.
Yeah, I think I would reorganize the way it's on the page.
Well,
If you move up the explanation up to the top instead of down at the bottom.
Can we look at it's kind of it's more of an explanation. It's more the purpose. And there's an explanation is kind of what you do after you've been challenged and you have to explain yourself. But a purpose is more, I don't know,
Well, it has the purpose. It is the explanation. This is the purpose of this. If you
I
move
know,
that up
but
to
why
the
not
top,
call it the purpose? I don't know. It's
oh, you're challenging the word of explanation.
yeah, it's the purpose, not the apology, not the explanation. Here's why I wanted, I mean, it
Yeah,
seems more positive to say the purpose, to Bob's point.
Yeah, I think that would just be a question to ask. I've seen this word explanation in other things. We could
Yeah.
say, could we put it as purpose instead? And also put that up at the top.
Yeah, and I don't think that's illegal. It shouldn't be a legal problem, right?
I can't think so.
What do you think? We have,
The other thing I have actually seen in others where the punish or the the offense language is done later as an amendment. In some of them, actually, there's a lot of different ways these have been.
well, given that the punishments and the fines are not going to deter anybody from anything, I like the idea of an amendment. I mean, it's sort of like a one-year demolition delay. It's doesn't matter.
Right.
What
It
is a
could.
violation?
Or another, if you, for example, if you had a stone wall on the right of way at the end of your driveway or something that was in the public right of way, that's the other thing. It has to be, that's what the
In the public
specifics
right away, yeah.
in the public right of way, and you took down that stone wall, that's a violation. If you've also received in your packet, and I think we got it last time, the Chapter 3, Section 15C. That's the enabling legislation at the state level, and it's about these stone walls that are in the right of way. Although don't even see it here, but that's the concept that they're working on. And so if you mess around with the stone wall and didn't get permission from the planning board to do that, that would be a violation, and you'd be charged for your first offense $100.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Yeah. So the point of this really is just like the demolition delay, is to create a process, a public process that helps to protect within the public right of way trees and stone walls.
So you couldn't order the person to restore the stone wall?
Yes, I think you can. Yes, you
Yes, you
can.
can. Yes, you
Yes.
can. Yes,
That's more impressive.
yes.
Yes, you can. And the way I like actually the way that our town council has put this, as the town planner would have the authorization to do that. You would, if you wanted to change your stone wall in some way, you would have to go before the planning board for a public hearing. If you violate it, the town planner is the one who's going to enforce the provisions.
Yeah.
And
You know,
the planning board will adopt rules and regulations that will be much more detailed
Yes.
in terms of enforcement and what requires review and what does not require review,
Yeah.
and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And that can be done just during a public hearing that the planning board holds. So not having that all in the bylaw is a benefit because
Right.
it can all be adopted after town meeting.
I
through,
agree
a
with
rules
that
and reg.
because my experience with the regulations implementing federal laws is that you have a lot of latitude.
Yeah,
Right.
so this idea is just to get this language that we will have a scenic road bylaw that follows the provisions of this Mass General Laws section, Chapter 40, Section 15C, which really specifically it's about stone walls and trees and the planning board. It also states that nominations for a scenic road would come either from the Historical Commission, Conservation Commission, or Planning Board. And that's all really what town council has provided in his draft.
So I think we're saying that we would delete the chart and put the fines at the end, or
Yeah.
arrange to have an amendment at town meeting? I'm not sure which.
So
Yeah,
so we don't have to vote on this tonight. We do have one more meeting before draft warrant articles are due. So I can take our suggestions and comments back to Elizabeth and Mina, town council, and see if we can, reformat this a little bit. And then we could have a final version to vote on at our January meeting that would possibly include at that point the list of roads, or it should include the list of roads at that point.
Yeah, by the way, Heather, you want to put that up? I did send this today, the list of roads that there's some historians that I've consulted that who are doing some research on the roads, and they've got 9 roads that are being suggested for this initial round. What I put in the bottom is all the different resources that have been consulted at the Special Collections of the Concord Free Public Library to do research on all these different roads. I think Chessie, you did Westford Road, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's a gentleman, Andy Feinberg, who I think is on this Zoom, or did a lengthy research on Monument Street. So there you are. Hello, thank you. It was very impressive. And one of the things about all these roads, Anka Voss, and she can speak for herself, but I know she's been very keen on getting a new history of, or maybe the history of roads in Concord. And this initial work that Andy and Chessie have already done and others are working on these specific roads would really be a terrific beginning for that.
I would just say, I live on Lowell Road. I think one of the very most beautiful vistas in the entire town is on Lowell Road. And I don't know if anybody's thought about that. And Andy, I noticed on Monument Street, maybe you could add the bullet hole house when you talk about the old manse. I think that was your.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my only suggestion.
Yeah. Well, these research was conducted awfully quickly, and it's amazing what they pulled together.
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, so we can, there was discussion about Lowell Road, and then a concern that maybe it had already been altered too dramatically, but it's a beautiful road. It's not a numbered road, is it?
No.
No.
Anyway, just a thought.
Yep. Well, the other thing is, roads can be added in subsequent years. The idea that this would, one thing town council has recommended is that if we present this warrant article, to include the roads with it, not have 2 separate articles. There had been some discussion about presenting it as 2 different articles, and the town council recommendation is 1.
Do you remember what his thinking was about that? Because I thought that was interesting. What was
I don't know
behind that? That might be good to know.
Heather, do you know?
I would have to go back through my emails. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
We'll look though.
I don't.
Anybody thought about the Old Marlborough Road?
Yes, they've thought about that, but again, they felt that there's so many houses, and I'm not sure because it is it's an old road.
And it's the only road on that list that has a poem about it written by Thoreau.
Oh. Well, okay, there's an example. We could do one of those little oval signs.
So I have to think more about this and look at the criteria, because it can't be just the old roads and the old stone walls, because somebody recently, I think it was Richard Foreman, no less, that talked about how the modern roads on Garfield Road, or the modern stone walls on Garfield Road, there's more stone walls on Garfield Road than probably anywhere in Concord, but they're not old. I mean,
No,
not
but
Concord
that's,
old.
Well, the
yeah,
rock's old, its placement's new.
What?
The rock is old, the placement is new.
Yes,
It's
that's
new.
right. That's right. They're more estate walls, but they're very beautiful. So age is not the only criteria.
no. So Ken, I did this Q&A. I don't know, Heather, do you have that too? This was all, you just got a lot of material kind of late. I'm very sorry about all that. So you probably haven't had a chance to read through all of it, but this, I did a kind of a Q&A.
I didn't read that.
Ultimately that, we'll be working on this ultimately for town meeting, but if you look under the point where what criteria used to determine a scenic road in Concord, we did a fair amount of work looking into historic maps and felt this 1852 map, which was stamped as the town authorized map of Concord, we felt that's sort of one essential criteria that the road needed to appear on that. Some of them appear there under a different name, but they're there. So that's, and then some of the other criteria, and a lot of this is taken from kind of reading through an awful lot of other communities' rules and regulations to see what they have developed.
Melissa, is there any documentation of the age and variety of trees that would be part of this?
Not that I have, and maybe, I know that's something, who Richard Higgins is a tree person along with.
Yeah.
Delia
I mean,
Trees.
I would think that that would be valuable because, thinking about the arguments what we've already heard for the scenic qualities of the road by October Farm, trees are key.
Yep. I wonder, well, Nancy, Richard knows a lot about, right? Richard Higgins, is he the tree
Well,
guy?
I was thinking also of Richard Foreman again,
Okay,
who I think knows every tree in town. There's an
Personally, yeah.
unbelievable tree. next
actually,
to
you're
the-
right, he does. He was talking about those ginkgo trees and there was a
Yeah.
female and he thought we should
Yeah,
take.
yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll ask him. Thank you, Bob.
Parenthetically, there's an incredible oak tree adjacent to the post office in town on the little side parking street that gets so much abuse, but it's unbelievable. Anyway, go ahead. Not our topic tonight.
I was just gonna say that Peebo Brown and Ted Scott are also working on a project to conduct some historical research on the history of trees in Concord.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so are there any other comments or questions about this?
I just have a statement to make. I reached out to about 15 communities across the state to talk with them about the scenic road bylaws that they had and what the issues were, how they were overseen and what was going on in their communities. And one of the things that I think about half of them said that it seems that homeowners that are on a scenic road may not be aware of it and have contractors come on their site, do work, start altering the walls, and then somebody observes it and reports it.
Mhm.
So when and if this is passed, assuming it is passed, is there a way of notifying the owners on those roads that in fact it is now a scenic road?
In fact,
That's a
what
good
we're
question.
planning to do before town meeting, is to notify everybody that this is in the works, that we are trying to pass this and why we think it's a good thing. Thank you, because no, I mean, I really think people should be, I want people to support this. I don't think it's an onerous, it's really to
No,
preserve,
not at all.
protect it.
No. No, but I mean, it's sad to see a wall half removed before somebody realizes they're under the
Yeah.
auspices of
Absolutely.
something that should have been done. So I think that besides, besides passing it, which I know in itself is going to be somewhat of a hurdle. But once it is, and hopefully it will be, then some kind of outreach to make sure people understand that, that in order to deal
Right.
with it, we need to get.
The letter should begin, congratulations,
Yes.
you are on a historic scenic
Right.
road.
Even though you're only going to get fined $1, you can do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
So yes, Heather, where did you
I
have?
was just gonna say, we will have to hold a public hearing because we are submitting a warrant article. And I'll have to look into it if we will notify each individual homeowner of that public hearing.
Wow.
Likely that we will.
a
That'll
lot.
be a huge mailing. So I'll have to check with council on that.
Well, because
Yeah.
I really think it's important that we do that. It just says good public relations, good community outreach. I realize for the hearing, but also I just think it's important people know that.
You
And-
don't want them to learn at town meeting.
No,
Or you don't want them to learn from the signs out saying stop something before everybody's heard about it.
Right.
okay. Any other comment? So we will get back to town council with our suggestions. Any other final thoughts? Because we will take this up again next month.
What about increasing the value of the fines?
Yes.
We can't.
That's important.
That is by statute.
Okay.
That's actually in the statute.
Okay, so we
Um,
cannot.
Cannot. Well, so moving on then to updates and reports. I asked Nancy to, well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Nancy because she just got elected to become the chair of the
Yeah,
Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee.
yeah,
Wow. Congratulations.
yeah, we'll see
Hey,
about that. We'll see about that. I'm gonna
You
need a
agree?
lot of help, I think. We, a few hours before the meeting today, Mass Highway resubmitted revised 25 to 75% documents for the Route 2A project that
Oh,
runs
great.
primarily through Minuteman National Historical Park.
Right.
And it would involve the installation of a lot of these raised pedestrian crossings, vertical granite curbs, whatnot, tall stop signs, flashing lights, solar panels that are supposed to help safety, and a lot of raised splitter islands. So they did back away a little bit from the widening of the street of the Route 2A, which we used to think of as the Battle Road in the national park. But there's a phase 2, and they're very clear about phase 2 that it's going to be a reconstruction of Route 2A with all kinds of other stuff that they're not telling anybody about right now. So we're going back and forth with them about process and the need to have meaningful consultation with historical commissions, which they really have not done yet, and they're ready to go to 100%. So this could be a little bit of a fight in terms of trying to convince DOT that this is not a fast and easy resurfacing project. It's a project that could greatly impact the future of the Battle Road, the national park, the connection between Lexington and Concord, the entry to Concord. So we're looking for a more legitimate process. And the good thing is somebody from Lincoln is the vice chair that I've worked with for years and years over many issues, often about Route 2A. So we'll see
Nancy,
how
what's
that
the
goes.
what's the rationale for these changes?
I think the driver is this concept of complete streets that Mass Highway seems to have embraced, or maybe they're required to embrace a complete streets concept, which means that they have to make accommodation for all forms of transportation, including pedestrians and bicycles. So there's 4 of these very modern, flashy, heavy crosswalks within the national park. And they cross the road, Route 2A. On one side, there's one of these heavy duty crosswalk things. On the other side, they don't connect to the national park paths in any way. So they're really inviting people to come across Route 2A with the speed limit still 40 miles an hour. And they don't seem to be bothered by the fact that they don't connect to anything. So I'm totally baffled by this. But I think that's a big driver. The other big driver is that MassDOT seems to be under increasing pressure to do projects more quickly. And District 4 has regarded this process or this project as, you know, just low-hanging fruit and the easy stuff. So they're trying to just really rush it through. It's
But aren't they by law supposed to follow the 106 procedure? They have not reached out to us.
They are, and their process guardian, the cultural resources guy in the headquarters office, has told me in no uncertain terms that he is just waiting for 25% drawings. Although what we saw today again is 25% to 75. And we know from the representative from District 4's earlier comments that they're working on 100% drawings right now. So, and Heather got a notice for stakeholders that there's going to be another stakeholder meeting, but the stakeholders are narrowly defined by a consulting firm whose business is built on this complete streets paradigm. So it's going to be interesting.
I'm just curious, I'm sure this has been done, but has there been any outreach to the legislators, the state senator and the state rep? Are they involved?
Some. Probably.
So what about our state rep and our state senator?
I think there's been some communication with Mike Barrett's office, and he had asked me at the dedication of the Lexington Visitor Center what was new, and I couldn't help myself. I said, there's this project you should watch. He was very interested in it. So I need to check back with his office, and then other people are contacting their state reps as well to see.
One thing I wanted to add, when I contacted the planner in Lincoln, I'm sure you might be aware of this, they seem to be fully supportive of this plan. The town of Lincoln is fully supportive of everything that is. Now I know, because I used to be a resident in Lincoln. 2A
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
2A is the furthest point from Lincoln, that you can go.
Yeah.
So it isn't like, but
South Lincoln people always accuse the central part of Lincoln of putting all their stuff over there.
No, I know.
And we always said, the national park always said, well, we're your front yard, even if you're Lincoln's backyard.
Yeah.
But Michael, I take your point. I wrote Paula Vaughn a note today, and asked if we couldn't have coffee.
I don't need to say this, because all of you have articulated this appropriately from the minute it was brought before the Historical Commission, that this is radically going to change that road, radically.
Yeah, radically.
And it is sad, because it is a beautiful road.
It's only phase 1 too.
Oh, I know. And many people take that road because it is scenic, even though it takes a little bit longer to go from 95 over to Route 2. And with the amount of pedestrian crosswalks and the signage and the lighting and everything else, it's just going to not be. Yeah, it's going to be very sad, really and truly.
It'll be it'll be turning our backs on decades and decades. of
And the
effort.
one thing I did hear, which I don't, from the Commonwealth when I spoke to the DOT, is they said, well, neither, it has to do with scenic roads. They said, well, neither Lexington or Concord has a scenic road bylaw.
Oh,
So why
interesting.
have all of a sudden they're upset about this road? And I said, well, I didn't know about Lexington, but I have since spoken to the planner. But we are working on that. But it seemed to have some basis for them to act like, well, you don't have a scenic road bylaw, so you don't have a huge portion of 2A, so you're a minor stakeholder rather than a major stakeholder.
Oh, Michael,
But I
keep
do
that
think
up.
but I do think we need to get the legislators involved and get proactive, because I do think they could.
Yeah. I think that's right. And even at some point at the national level, I mean, national resources have been dumped into this national park since it was created in 1959.
Right.
And even though we didn't own, I'm sorry, I can't get over that. Even though the park never owned Route 2A, it was always regarded as the battle road, because Route 2A today overlays much of the original route of battle. It was a battlefield at some point, or along some sections that are still.
I pick up on Michael's point. I think we should get in touch with our congressperson, Trahan. If the investment that's been done in this part of Middlesex County can be overturned, so can the investment in Lowell Historical Park.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think
Heather,
we should make that case.
Heather, what entity in the town is the appropriate conduit to the legislators about this matter? Is it the Historical Commission, or is it some other board, or
Oh, that's a good
the
question.
town manager? Who does it?
Select board? Or do
Probably.
do we
No,
have-
I'd have to check with Melissa. I mean, Marcia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
we
I'll check
can't
with
co-
Marcia and see if it can come from the Historical Commission, or
Right.
if it can just come from Nancy as the chair of the Battle Road Scenic Byway. I will check.
I mean,
It would be stronger if it
I
came from
don't
the
wanna-
park, because Lincoln has weighed in heavily on this.
Yes.
So it would be stronger if it came from, for instance, the select board. I know we're a little at disadvantage right now without a town manager, but
Well,
And if you don't think it's not going to happen, look what they did. Look at from a historical perspective of 8 years ago what they did to Arlington, 2 years ago what they did to Lexington Center, and they're
Right.
coming west.
Right.
right.
West.
I
I
have a
mean,
question. Linda
this is a-
Escobedo is, Linda, are you listening?
I bet she is.
Yeah.
She's here.
Yeah, I bet she is.
So can we, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I will.
So in the past, I think when we've had issues like this, the most recent one I've been involved with was for the 229 Main Street in terms of the
Oh,
federal dollars there, EPA dollars there. It's the commission or the committee that's closest to the issue, and as you are in terms of being aware of what's involved here, drafted the letter, and it then went out from the town manager's office. Now, yes, we are at a slight disadvantage right now, but there's no reason not to follow that same protocol, because we have someone in place through the end of the year, and then we will immediately have an interim who can fill the same function.
Okay,
and the select board does not separately take it up.
Sometimes we do.
Okay,
And yeah, sometimes we do.
okay,
But I can just, I'm just giving you
Yeah.
the most recent example that.
Yeah.
right. So
So
that
I mean,
means the historical commission should draft a letter for the town manager's signature, and
I mean,
Yeah.
my inclination is to write to not only our local, but our senators as well as Lori Trahan. Senator
Yeah,
Markey.
all
is-
of them. Yeah, I
all
would,
of them.
yeah, I would as well.
Yeah, and I think you need to send communications directly to the governor. I mean, he's.
The governor has his 250 commission, and there now are representatives from Concord, another area. Yeah. Oh, Linda, you know all about this, don't you? That the governor's commission didn't originally have these important towns out here on that commission, but the governor's commission on the 250th is another place maybe to have that.
Which
Okay,
we're expecting probably will get launched early in the year, so.
okay,
Okay,
okay, there's a lot of letter writing.
I can draft letters.
You'll help me?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're also having going to be an open gubernatorial campaign. And as I've been listening to this conversation, it strikes me that we should not only be thinking about, historic town preservation, but linking our interest to urban neighborhood preservations and improvements,
That's right.
and not separate those and find a candidate who would actually care about those things together.
Yeah. That's a really good point. It makes me think again of Malcolm X's history in Concord.
I just have one question. How much time do we have out there before they start, sending out bids for the work? Do we have, is
It's
there a
not
window of
clear.
a half a year? I'm sorry.
It's not totally clear. We have a representative at the Battle Road Scenic Byway meeting.
Right.
From Mass Highway. The poor guy is only supposed to take messages back and forth. So one of the things I asked about today was, I said, I think we need to hear from Mass Highway what the status of this project is,
Right.
and what's what going forward. So I guess that's another drafted letter to somebody at Mass Highway. Now, somebody at headquarters at Mass DOT has said he's now the person in charge. He's a cultural resource person. He's a formidable process guardian, but he knows a lot about 106, NEPA, MEPA, everything else. But he happens to think he's still waiting for 25% drawings. So Mass Highway is a little upside down on all this.
Yeah, well.
So I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
With some people. I'll talk to you, Mike.
Okay. We need to save the road.
Yeah.
We really need to save that road. So
I know it's a very important point right now, and they kind of have a steamroller going here.
Yeah, well.
But however,
They haven't encountered us yet, so we have just begun to fight.
That's right.
Anyway,
Right.
so I'll keep you all informed.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm going to need
Anybody have other comments about other, your observer assignments? I would just like to remind folks that next Tuesday evening, the planning board will be conducting its public forum regarding the possible rezoning of the Thoreau Business District,
right,
which has generated a lot of interest and I think a lot of misunderstanding. So I think it'd be really worthwhile for everyone to tune in, because it's a big swath of land and considerable changes could happen.
Right.
So that's my little, any other reports? If not, then I would like to. Yep.
I was just going to say that I did attend the Public Works meeting as much as I could, but I had to attend for only a short period of time this time. And I don't have anything too important to report, except for that we should keep an eye on what's happening on Hubbard Street, because that's where a complete streets concept might be working. I'm not sure what the neighbors are going to think. Some were in support of it, others are fearful how that's going to turn out. So there's a lot of work going on there right now. But I think it's a good thing we have somebody sitting there. And in all these committees, I think it's really good. Alan could say that it's really important, I know.
Yeah, very important. So we're
HDC. Yeah.
We're kept abreast of everything that's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, really It's a busy little town.
I mean, just seeing our faces there, people tend to take notice.
a
So,
sphere in their
Oh,
heart.
yeah, 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 that's right. People notice. And
well,
and
then
as a British reenactor always used to say to the colonials, we're from the government, we're here to help.
So I would like to just point out that Bob, I hope some of you have been able to attend some of your lectures, Bob Gross's lectures about his new book after how many, 40 years, Bob? Is that what you're?
Well, I signed the contract in 1978, promised
Oh.
to deliver in 1983. So
Okay.
that's 38 years.
Okay, 38, sorry. Anyway, it's a
Here,
beautiful book. The Transcendentals in Their World. And Bob spoke at the library the other night, and I know you've been at the Concord Museum. I think you're going to be at Mass Historical on Monday. But you know, it's just an honor and a pleasure to have you on the commission. God knows we've got the ultimate oracle here. So,
Yeah.
you know,
that's
Thank
great.
you.
Last thing,
No, it is.
Melissa, I sent something to you about Mass Historical Society's grant opportunities. Heather, have you seen
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, Historical Commission. I think it's the commissions.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right. So
It's a
they give
grant
grants,
program.
and we might want to take a look at that at some point in time.
Yes,
That's all.
yes, I know. 'cause we
Does
saw-
actually, it would be interesting if funding is available for us to think about taking an overview of the work of this historical commission and putting something together to kind of take stock and maybe even think about what we've done in relation to other commissions.
I
As a
think
way,
that's fascinating, but they seem to have a focus on untold stories.
Yeah,
We'd have
oh,
to really.
you're
plan
talking
ahead.
about mass humanities,
no, it's a
which had a
massive-
big,
No,
big-
Mass
really?
Historical Commission.
okay.
Yeah,
Mass
it's
Historical
a
Commission.
matching grant program, so we'd have to really plan ahead.
There you go.
And probably get a grant for funding and then apply for the matching grant. So it could complicate projects, and that's why I've never,
Oh,
looked
that's
into it
interesting. I
further,
didn't
just
catch
because, say we went to CPC for, to update our historic resources master plan and asked for half the funding because we're
Yeah.
hoping that, we'll get the other half from their matching grant program, but then perhaps we don't get it and we'd have to go back to CPC.
Yeah.
So it would make more sense to just ask CPC for the full amount.
Yes, which is
So
exactly
that's
what
kind
we're
of why
going
I've
to
never
do.
really explored that grant program, because it is such a strict matching program.
I didn't catch that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
oh,
thank
well.
you for that. So the final thing, minutes, actually, did I miss something? I didn't find the minutes.
I do
I
not
didn't-
have them done.
Okay.
I was out the first half of the week sick, playing catch
know.
up the second half of the week. So I apologize, I don't have them done. I will have both sets of
That's-
minutes for your next meeting.
That's fine. No, that's fine. So, well, unless there's other issues, I think that we can adjourn and just wish everybody a happy.
Okay.
Nope,
Yes, oh,
Mike.
good. Thank you. I'm happy you're going to say that. Say it. Say
So
what you were
happy-
saying.
I was going to say happy holidays, Merry
Great.
Christmas. I
Great.
know what's politically correct,
Right,
but
I
I know
know.
the season's
I know.
upon us.
Right.
And I wish, this has been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of work, and we
Right.
got the new year to start all
Right.
over again.
No, I just want to say one thing. I know, I just want to say what an honor it is to be on this commission and to see the extraordinary work that everybody does. And I don't, I hear in town when they talk about the commission and this, and I want to just say this because I spoke to 5 of the brokerage firms about 3 weeks ago. And I asked them when we were talking about the scenic road going there. And I just want to say, I think it's important. So I asked each one of them, I said, can I ask you a question? When a customer comes in, and these were the managers of each of the firms, what attracted them to Concord? What do they say? Unless they were born here or they went to school here. And each one of the brokers said to me, well, history's never part of it. They don't really know much about the town. And then when they hear about the bylaws and all that, they're very upset. And I listened to all of them. And then I said, well, I'm going to get back to you in a couple of days. And I got back to each one of them. And I said, you're when a person walks into town and they want to buy something here, they're in here talking with you. And do you really feel that the foundation of this community, the basis of the value of this community, what creates the value of the homes and the taxes for the schools and everything else, and it was like they didn't fully appreciate any of it. And I was appalled to hear this. But then when you really get into it with the members of the firms, and I'll stop talking, everybody appreciates when they know what we saved or what we do or how we do it, all of you and the background of each of you. I think it's an extraordinary thing. And I think sometimes people don't realize it. And I think you should be very proud of everything that's gone on.
Oh,
I really
that's
mean
nice.
it.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
takes a lot of work, but that's, I think
It
why we-
does. And you do
Yeah.
a lot of it. You do a lot of it. And Heather gets sick and Charlotte is crying because Heather gets sick. So this is not good.
Heather, well, little Charlotte's our mascot.
I thought your dog was that.
Yeah, where's your dog today?
I know.
No
Where's
barking
your
on
dog?
you.
She's right there.
Let him bark.
Lucy's there. I wonder if she wants to say anything.
Would you like to say something, Lucy?
Something.
You're
But you're
muted.
muted.
I'm not muted anymore, right?
No, I can hear you. We can
Oh,
hear
good.
you.
Wow.
So Michael and everybody, one of the other reasons people really love to be here, I'm speaking on behalf of the Hugh Cargill Trust and many other organizations. Concord is so generous in outreach to people in need. It is amazing. And I work with a lot of recipients who need help, and they all say they can't imagine living anyplace else because people are so helpful and give so much. So that's what I want to say, including all of you.
Nice.
But it's
Oh,
just,
that's nice.
it's so heartwarming. Anyway, have a
Well-
lovely holiday, everybody. And now I'm going to mute myself.
Bye,
Thank you.
Lucy. Bye.
Well, it does bring to mind, Bob, what you were talking about in your talk the other night about Concord as community working together, which was really very beautiful, that has characterized this town from the beginning. Right?
And my book basically traces how the idea of the ethic of interdependence has played a crucial role in the minds and actions of people in this town.
So
Great.
thank you. Yes. Well, so I do think, back to Robert's Rules of Order, I do need someone to move that we adjourn.
I
I
don't
do.
think we want to end the meeting tonight.
What?
I think we're
I don't
done.
think
I
we wanna
move
end the
that, I
meeting
move
tonight.
that we adjourn.
Second,
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
No, you
Aye.
can't, Heather, they have to do one
Aye.
now.
Okay,
Heather
Alan,
says,
Aye.
I disagree, but she says so.
Alan, do you favor adjourning?
I favor adjourning, yes.
Nancy,
I,
Michael,
No. Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Bob?
I'm out of here, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and I say yes too. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good
night.
Good night.
Happy holidays.
I
Happy
know.
holidays.